Now we'll move on to our next featured speaker, who I've known quite a while, all her life. And by the way, though I kind of grew up a little bit on a farm, I did not teach her about how to plant watermelon and cucumbers. That's not the way I taught her. I just make sure that's clear. That's a disclaimer. So Rebecca is the creator of this Women Empowerment Series, and we'll be talking about that. That's what this event is, and there'll be other events you'll have an opportunity to connect with. She's also the founder and owner of Your Purpose-Driven Practice, and she's also the creator of the Speaker Talent Search. Yeah, so any of y'all who have, start saying hankering, but I won't, have a desire, translate, that's Southern, to become a speaker, get on a stage like this or other stages, other venues out there. That's one of her programs that's really powerful, so y'all get a chance to do that. So she's a creator of that, amongst other things that we'll learn about later. But I'd like to reintroduce my daughter, who I didn't teach about farming, Rebecca.
Watermelon could open up all kinds of opportunities.
That's a pretty seedy statement there.
It's starting. Well, we're going to be talking about your story. That story, that message that's in you, that's been speaking to you, wanting to come forward. So many people I talk to have a story, they have a message, they have something that is wanting to come forward, and they talk about someday. I have a dream, I want to bring this forward. If only this opportunity would present itself, or this lined up someday. This year, I'm going to bring this message forward. This year, I'm going to bring that story forward. And then the next year starts. And the next year. And the next year. We can have these powerful callings planted in us. Sometimes they need a little more time to grow before they're ready to come forward. Sometimes it's a little bit safer to keep it as a someday, as a dream. It's a little bit safer. It doesn't have any of that hard, challenging stuff around it. It's just this beautiful thing of having a book, being published, having a story, bringing it forward. And I think it's really important we take a look at that. If we find ourselves adding that to our list each year, are we really liking the idea of it? Or are we ready to bring it forward? And only you can answer that. But I can tell you, if it keeps coming up, it wants to come forward. Those seeds are planted to grow. They're no longer in the envelope, right? They're planted. And in fact, when a seed like that has been planted in your life, it's because someone needs it. In your voice, in your way. Not someone else's. And they're ready for you now. So I'm going to focus on the writing aspect of it. But this applies as a speaker as well. Are we liking the idea? Do we want that transformation without the vulnerability? That's what I wanted. I wanted people by osmosis to know I cared, to know they mattered. Somehow they would know just by my presence and being there. The way I hugged them, the way I touched their shoulder, the way I listened to them, they would know. But I discovered I had to be willing to be seen, to be willing to share in order to have them know and understand. Same thing, they will never read your story if you don't write it. And you will never write your story unless you start to write it. Truly. And we can find all kinds of reasons not to. We can schedule it in our calendar. We can do all of those things. And then suddenly an hour's gone by and we didn't know Facebook could be so fascinating. Or whatever it may be. We need to commit and do to bring forth. Being a speaker doesn't mean you just suddenly walk up on the stage and have the message and go from there. You've got to take steps. And then you do have to get up on the stage and take action. It's the same thing with writing. But here's a myth I had about writing. I thought the only way you could write a story was picking up a pen and writing it. And I come from a business background, so I was really good at business planning and lists. So every time I tried to write from my heart, it came out as a business plan with an analysis and a report. But I discovered there's actually more than one way to write your story. I found I could speak my heart, I could speak my message. There's all kinds of technology we can use to record, to transcribe, to get that information in a way that we can get it out of us and interact with it and bring it forward. And that opened up all kinds of opportunities for me. Sometimes it's easier to take a step instead of all or nothing. That's another way we hide, by the way. Like that someday dream. It's safer. It's all or nothing. It has to be completely this way. This is the only way to do it. And if it's not, then it's not even worth doing. And we give up. Or we'll try again next year because it has to be that way. We become so attached to the how and instead of taking steps and letting it unfold. Sometimes it's with starting with a chapter. Starting with an article. It's taking steps. Starting with a journal. Start getting it out of you and start creating it, co-create it, bring it forward. The first step I took was an anthology. And here's how resistant I was. I was feeling called to start telling my story, and that was already scary and terrifying, and I didn't feel like I should have to. There were so many other people way more qualified than me. Who was I? I could see all my imperfections, and I wrestled with God about this. And I would tell God all the other people who would be better at this, why I wasn't qualified. Who was I to step into this space? All the weaknesses I could see, all the fears that I had. But that seed kept growing. And underneath it, when I looked at my heart, again, looked at those roots, I looked at why it mattered to me, I thought, well, what if? Because sometimes it just starts with a what if. What if? Sharing my story could make a difference for someone. It could actually be used for good. So I had that deep desire, but I had so much fear layered on top. And so I wrestled, and I stalled 9 months. Kept coming up. So I went, okay, God, I will do this mean, hard, horrible thing you're asking me to do of share my story. If. You guys ever do that? If it can make a difference for another. I will do this. And I don't have to speak to more than 50 people at a time. I don't want to be recorded. No writing. I'm not a writer. Let's see. I'll use a microphone because my voice isn't super loud. No pictures, no filming, no radio, no any of that. And then no offers. I don't know how to do offers. And give me the words to say, let's go change the world. Silence. I was like, God, I said yes. And then it came to me, you misunderstood, Rebecca. This is yes or no. Period. Will you go where I call you to go, share what I call you to share, or not? It is your choice. But I'm not putting boundaries and restrictions and containers around it. Scared, terrified, shaking, I finally said, yes, okay, I will do this. And I listed everything again just to make sure he had the list of what I really didn't want to do. Within 2 to 3 months from that point, I was on a stage sharing my story, first time, 7 minutes. This is in 2015. First time on stage sharing, 7 minutes, shaking, terrified, crying. But I knew someone in the audience needed what I had. And I was willing to be vulnerable. I was willing to be imperfect. I was willing to feel the fear and be scared to help that one. That was enough for me. But I will say what I did do to support myself in that is I had already eyed the exit strategy in case I needed to leave the room. Seriously, I did. I found the most efficient way to leave the room and gave myself permission to do so if that's what I needed to do to keep me safe. Every 30 seconds I stayed on that stage, I became more empowered and more confident, and it was by choice, which is much more empowering than have to. Got a standing ovation I never saw. I was out of my body. Had 2 book deals in the works. One of them ended up becoming an international bestseller, was an anthology. That's what opened up doors to radio, to conferences, which led to television, networks, and publishing. Thank you. And what that did for me is I got to keep growing, and everything was scary at that point. So I was all in. That's something I think we hesitate being all in. If you're saying yes, it's yes. It's not yes, but, yes, and, yes, if. It's yes. Be willing to take the steps. It's okay to feel the fear. And it's okay to set yourself up with boundaries so that you give yourself permission to step down or contract a little bit when you need it, but get back up again and step forward again. Keep taking those steps. It matters because when you're called to be a speaker, when you're called to write, that's because someone needs what you have and they need it in that way. Be willing to bring it forward. So I'm going to have us take a moment and feel into this. And I have a couple exercises I want to give you to help you with this. Because these things can be charged, they can be vulnerable. Oh, and by the way, that list, just so you know, all those things I said I don't want to do, never ever. No one was asking me to do those things at that time, by the way. They were the worst, scariest things I could think of to say no to. And I do all of those things and have done even more than I imagined in those areas, and I love it. And I didn't know that about myself. I got to learn that. And I discovered every step prepared me for the next. I didn't have to take 18 steps at once, just one. And that first one is feeling in and deciding, are you willing to say yes to that calling? Are you willing to let that seed bloom and shine in your life? You have choice. But I want you to know a yes is a yes. So I'd love for you to stand up. Is anyone familiar with muscle testing in the room? Okay. So those of you that aren't, here's my way of explaining it, and the people who are more scientifically minded can explain it in more detail. But it has to do with what strengthens us on an electron level and what doesn't. And so by feeling into that, the things that are going to strengthen us uniquely will help us be stronger. Those that are not good for us, that are going to weaken us, that perhaps should be no's, are going to weaken us. This has to do with food, supplements, environments, attending things. You can use this tool to feel through all of that. You'll actually see me in the grocery store. I used to try to be subtle now. I just don't. I'll pick up the supplement. And this is how I tell. So let me show an example. If I'm putting my weight kind of equally on my heels and my toes, just kind of equally spaced, the knees loose, kind of relaxed, and I ask a question, yes or no. Is this supplement something that's good for me? My body would lean forward. I'll actually feel the weight shift to the toes of my feet, kind of the balls of my feet, in an upward motion. That's a yes. When it's a no, I feel it shifting back to my heels, and it's almost this heavy kind of squishing feeling. That's a no. So when I arrange my anthology, some of you may not know this, and I choose the order of the chapters, I try to tap into wisdom greater than my own to organize the orders and the sections every author should go into. And that's the process I use. Yes or no, which section, and every time people comment on how magical the order of the authors is. I use this tool every single day. I'll use it in grocery stores. So you can use it for yourself. You can say, should I listen to, would it be beneficial to me to listen to the rest of Rebecca's presentation? Hopefully, we're getting yeses and leaning forward. If it helps, you can even take your shoes off. Sometimes that helps so that you can feel, kind of be balanced in that and see. And am I complete for the day? No, that means there's more. Does that make sense? So I want to give you a moment to ask, is your story ready to come forward? Just feel in and see. Your story or your message. Just receive that information. Is it something that you're ready, or it would be beneficial to you and those who need it to take steps on it this year? Is it something that involves writing in some way? And then ask any other question that you have. I'll give you a minute or so to kind of feel in, see what information you can gain. Going to ask your final question for now. You can always do more of this. Okay, great. Go ahead and have a seat. Take a moment to write down some of the answers and insights and information you received. Just take a couple moments. If writing was something you felt a yes towards, it's great to feel in. Is it an article? Is it a chapter? Is it my own book? And then I want you to take your pen in your normal writing hand, the hand you normally write with, and I want you to write down or answer the question. Or write the question. I'm trying to think of the best way I want to do this. So write the question. If I were to start sharing my story, my message, if I were to start sharing my story, my message, I would like to include ... I would like it to include ... And then switch hands. And see what it would include. We're now tapping into a different part of your brain than you usually tap into when you're writing. And then you can switch back to your normal writing hand and answer as well. Let's see if the information shifts. See what comes forth. It's a great way you can get through writer's block. And we can use this activity for lots of things when you're stuck or you're seeking answers or seeking information. By switching hands, you access a different part of your brain than you normally access when you're writing. So it can help you look at things differently. Beautiful. Okay, good. So any ahas, any thoughts that anyone would like to share that came up as you were taking a couple moments to explore into this and feel into some of these exercises?
One of the things that I sometimes struggle with, that if I'm trying to do something and I'm too afraid to do it, that's because I'm thinking too much about me.
Yes.
You know, how that's going to affect me rather than I'm doing it as a service to others.
Yes.
I'm doing it because I want to share something that can help someone else.
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you. That's a lot of what helps pull me forward too. Yeah, absolutely.
Is your mic on?
Yes.
When I first started this exploration, it wasn't until I talked to the Spirit and they said, well, when are you going to do something to make it happen? And it was very difficult. But I walked into a church and really spoke to God, and it was empty. I wanted to make sure of that. And I sang, and I went back every week in an empty church and sang, because I didn't know I had a voice. I knew I had relatives who had a voice, and I wanted it to hear it. And after an accident, there was nothing more I could do, and I had to figure this was it. But when I said to the Spirit, I will do it, it came to me in hand within 2 hours. And when I used that information, later on, I said, okay, what is the next step? And it was across the table from me at lunch that day. I mean, hard and fact reality handed to me. So I just want to encourage you, because it was scary, and it was scary now to tell you, but that is the basis of my message. At 60 years old, I'd made a huge change, and I'm still at it. And I want to encourage anybody who feels that shaky, where can you go to make that commitment that it's real?
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you.
When I was doing this exercise just a second ago, what really came to me was I've been focusing on science and research when I talk to people, and facts and data. And what it really comes down to is I want to be there for people who are experiencing the same real physical and psychological pain that I've been through, and help them not just to get better, but to understand that they can.
Yes.
Because it's so easy when you're in devastating pain to think that there's no solution. And that part of what we have to do as healers is just simply say, there is a way, you can get better, there is sunshine, and the science and all of the rest of it will fall into place. What's most important is hope.
Beautiful. Yes.
You're talking about story, and I'm literal when it comes to that. So I'm not surprised, but it's interesting. What I wrote down was, what you said, what it includes, ... The power of understanding what needs to be heard, which usually we think about what needs to be said. I thought that was very, and then it followed up with, words have power to move you forward, backward, or nowhere. Let's move forward.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yep. I can take one more.
What came up when I wrote with my left hand, and I'm right-handed, was about survivorship. And the story that came to mind that I haven't told often because it doesn't seem relevant to life now, but today I hope it is that when my mother was pregnant with me, she and my father were driving down from Chicago, where I was born, ultimately to Atlanta, to their home. She was 3 months pregnant, and she was hit by a train, and she started spotting. Shortly, when she was 6 months pregnant, she had a medical condition and her bowels locked up, and so I almost wasn't born. And then when I was 2 years old, I almost died from strep throat. My commitment and the stand that I take for others to share their stories and bring their voice comes from the understanding that there is a fight for you to stand in your purpose, to share your life, and the gifts that you have in the world are so needed. And the reality is, just like we shine, there is shadow, whether you want to call it evil spirit or whatever, that is fighting that opposition. And we are here and we're together in community to help each other remember our purpose and to have the tools so that we can fight, but also not be in combative mode every day, but to fight openly, to fight with open hearts, with joy, with connection to our purpose and the reason that we're here.
Beautiful. Thank you. So on that, are you ready? Are you willing to take that stand in your purpose, to bring your message forward, to bring your story forward? So we checked in, and is this beneficial? Is this being called forth? Now it comes down to choice. Are you willing? And if so, I want you to take out that insert form with the action item list and write down, I'm willing to share my story. Starting today. And I want you to put one action you can take towards that today. With that, I want you to remember that you are absolutely needed. Your message and your story is needed. I hope you choose to say yes to that calling. I hope you choose to bring it forward, because there are people that are waiting to read your story. There are people that are waiting to hear your message. Be willing to share it. Thank you.